and welcome to another really niche video about synths and things that go bleep and boop and whatever. And this time we're talking about trackers. In particular this one. This is the Polyend Tracker Plus, no less. I'm a complete and utter tracker novice. I've never used a tracker before in my life. So this whole video of me explaining about it is going to be very Dunning-Kruger. If there's anything I say which is nonsense, please do comment below and give back to the community, all that kind of thing. Full disclosure, this one was sent to me by Polyend in Polyend, Jinqui. And yeah, before we get into using it, probably a bit of a brief history about trackers or something like that. Let's see how we got on. I'll see you all after that. The story of trackers starts in the late 1980s, with the rise of home computing and video games. Early game soundtracks were, shall we say, lacking. There wasn't really a standard method of playing back audio. General MIDI was still in its infancy, and whilst the PC market had just started getting AdLib and Sound Blaster cards, they were expensive add-ons, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Most music software at the time had been designed to record or document music that was ultimately performed by humans, so we see things like representations of musical scores or the resurgence of the Victorian-era piano roll. However, a video game soundtrack was only ever going to be performed by a computer, so why complicate things? Particularly if you've no interest in ever handing it over to a human to play. Game developers, in particular developers for the new and powerful Amiga, needed something they could use to write game soundtracks, a sound tracker, if you like. And so enter a developer named Carlson Obarski, who obliged with the Ultimate Sound Tracker, a piece of developer-focused software that was designed to make the most of the Amiga's Paula sound chip. The Ultimate Sound Tracker had 4 channels, the same as the Paula, and it could load up to 15 different samples or instruments. And importantly, it saved the finished track as a standalone module, or mod file, which could be played back without the need for the tracker software that created. And this single thing made it really important for game development, where space was a premium. Unsurprisingly, for a tool aimed at developers to make game soundtracks, reviews of Ultimate Sound Tracker weren't great, but then it isn't designed to be a composition tool in the traditional sense. The output of this isn't a musical score, it's a limited set of instructions designed to be understood and only understood by a computer. And so Ultimate Sound Tracker got open sourced, and its bugs were fixed, and improvements and modifications and so on, until we ended up with Noise Tracker and Octamed and Pro Tracker and Scream Tracker and Fast Tracker and Impulse Tracker and many other types of tracker. And because of the small self-contained file format, tracker music also found its way into the demo scene, where developers were trying to demonstrate the power of these new machines as they were being built. And of course, if you ever pirated any software back in the day, I'm sure you haven't, but if you had, you'd have probably heard some tracker music. Today, the legacy of tracker software lives on in packages like Renoise and OpenMPT, and in hardware like Polyend Tracker Plus and Dirty Wave M8, but the principle's the same in each case: to create music that looks, to all intents and purposes, indecipherable and is only ever played back by a computer. And we're back. Well, that was fascinating, wasn't it? I'm sure the 6 people who stuck around agree as well. Hi. So trackers initially look a bit confusing, a bit like scrolling through a spreadsheet, but there is an inherent logic going on here. Each track is a sequence of steps that plays one after the other monophonically, and each step can contain one of 4 pieces of information. The note name, the instrument or sample that you want to play at that note, and then there are 2 different effect slots. So by effect, what I mean is not just things like delay or reverb, but also things like the volume, panning, arpeggios, pitch bend, glissando, things like that. And it varies between tracker implementations. So like OpenMPT, you can only put volume in the third column, but the effects column has more effects than the Tracker Plus. But then the Tracker Plus also has different things, like you can put volume in the third and fourth column, and there's also audio effects anyway, so you don't have to keep using up different tracks to fake things like delay. Similarly, because it supports wavetable scanning of samples, you're not really tied to using multiple instruments to fake things like PWM. And you've also got built-in synths and a drum machine if that's your sort of thing, which is kind of cool if you want to just make something without having to plug in loads of external gear. Now this makes for quite a unique way to sequence music. We're used to writing things that go from left to right with vertically stacked control and automation lanes, whereas trackers, all of that goes away and you're left with something that takes quite a bit of skill to make something useful out of it. It is quite easy to load in a couple of 2-bar loops and play them back. But that doesn't really feel in the spirit of the tracker. The fact that you can apply effects to individual steps makes it quite easy to create rolling loops, a lot of drum and bass and IDM. Or you can do something stupid like sample your Game Gear.
A few moments later.
If you want to find out more about trackers in general, I thoroughly recommend watching Ahoy's documentary. A link to that is somewhere around here. And in the meantime, do consider subscribing. I'm going to do another video on the Tracker Plus, where I do things like sequencing external MIDI gear. And looking at some of the pros and the cons, what it can do and what it can't do, maybe some of the differences between that and something more piano rolly like the Hapax here. Maybe some way to sort of like decide if you're on the fence about which way to go. Yeah, if there's anything you want to know about it, then please pop a question in the comments below, and if I've seen it by the time I get to make the next video, I will do my best to answer it. So yes, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.